Hey gang, I got a little story for you. Like to hear it? Here it go. So 5G. 5G is slowly rolling out. 5G is a new cell phone standard that's going to give, the everyday person ridiculous cell phone speeds, downloading as well as uploading. But let me back up a little bit. So 5G, the G stands for generation, right? So you got 3G, 4G, 5G. So 3G generation, 4 generation, and 5th generation, right? So the 3rd generation is the slowest out of the bunch, right? When it first came out, it was pretty slow. It was pretty slow, and it's still pretty slow for today's standards. So 3G, the best download speed you was looking at was probably 20 megabits per second. When it first came out, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't 20 megabits per second, but whatever you were doing, it was enough to accomplish because it wasn't back when pretty much everybody's cell phone was attached to them. You weren't on Instagram, you weren't on Facebook, you weren't on Snapchat. You pretty much was using your phone. You may look at a couple videos, you may send a couple pictures, but you weren't on your phone as much. You definitely weren't on the internet on your cell phone as much, right? Then you got 4G. So when things start getting more robust, people start rocking out on the internet a lot more, the capabilities expanded, right? So 4G, instead of having 20 megabits per second, at the maximum, 4G could have gigabit speeds. So 1 gigabit per second. Now, it pretty much didn't achieve that, but technically, it could reach 1 gigabit per second. If you go to Sprint, if you go to T-Mobile, if you go to wherever else they sell cell phones at, a lot of times they'll advertise 4G LTE, not just regular 4G, because technically they can't actually achieve the speed, right? So you're definitely not about to get 1 gigabit per second download speeds, and even the minimum, a lot of times you may not be able to achieve it. So the minimum speed for something to be considered 4G is 100 megabits per second, and a lot of times the cell phone towers weren't able to achieve that, so they just said LTE. They put LTE on the end of it, which stands for long-term evolution, which in short just meant that, hey man, we ain't, at 4G yet, but we're going to get there. We're going to evolve to that. So 4G technically isn't 4G. That's why they threw the LTE on the end of it. So you got 3G, 20 megabits. Then we moved up to 4G. Technically, at a minimum, it should be able to do 100 megabits per second, maximum 1 gigabit per second, right? Gigabyte per second. Then 5G. 5G. So we got 3G, 4G, and 5G. So 5G is pretty ridiculous, man. So 5G, at the minimum, for something to be considered 5G, has to have 1 gigabit download speeds. That's super fast. And at the maximum, 20 gigabits per second. So that's like crazy on a cell phone. That's crazy on a landline or on a machine that's connected to an Ethernet cable, right? To a home network, right? Like most times, your home network, your home Wi-Fi is going to be faster than your cellular Wi-Fi, but with 5G, not so much. Now, we know it's super fast and it's super cool, but unfortunately, as of right now, it's not widespread. They got a couple little spots, and literally spots, not like entire cities, but literally spots. They got a couple in Seattle, they got a couple in Chicago, and if you're near those spots, you can get 5G speeds, but you're gonna have to have a 5G capable device. There's only a few cell phones on the market right now that's even capable of running 5G speeds, right? And another thing is the hotspots that they have right now are concentrated, meaning that the signal, it does expand in all directions. So it's an omnidirectional antenna, and it's bumping out in all directions, but the span of the actual signal is pretty short, right? So basically, if I'm right underneath the damn hotspot, I got 5G. But if I walk a block down the street, I have 4G, okay? So that's another thing. You probably notice on your cell phone, if you, let's say that you are driving to a camping trip, right? And during the drive, you got 4G. You're rocking out, everything's great. But then once you actually get to the camping site and get in, in the woods with tall trees and your signal isn't as great as it could be, you're going to knock down to 3G and maybe even 2G. So the reason that the cell phone does that is because it wants to give you the best experience possible for wherever you are. So if you are somewhere where 4G is available, bam, there you go. If you're somewhere where 4G isn't available, but they still want you to, be able to get on the internet somewhat, use a cell phone, so on and so forth, you get dropped down to 3G, and then you just keep on dropping down till you don't have a signal at all. All right. So 3G, pretty much it's super slow, especially compared to damn 5G. Then you got 4G, which is the norm right now, 4G LTE. They actually have a step up from that right now that can actually give you gigabit speeds. But for now, for the most part, the cell phone that you're using is probably using 4G LTE, which is going to be less than gigabit speeds, but it's still pretty fast. You can watch YouTube, you can download what you need to download. Upload speeds are pretty slow, but it's fast enough to do what you need to do. But then 5G, once that gets more widespread, like that is super fast that you can download 20 gigabits per second or just a gig per second. That means that you can download, in a minute, you can download 9-10 movies. That's just crazy, man. But anyway, 5G is a new thing. It's slowly rolling out. And like I said, if you're interested in 5G, as of right now, you probably have to move from where you're at, and you probably have to get a new cell phone. But other than that, I just wanted to run down the three main cell phone services: 3G, 4G, and 5G. Hopefully you learned something. As a matter of fact, I know you learned something. And other than that, I'll see you in class.